Hello everyone, welcome to our next lecture video. This time we're going to talk about the nature of human acts. Sorry if I feel lazy today. I'm just gonna do the lecture from my own bed. The nature of human acts. So in our previous lesson, we tackled about the definition of ethics. We said that ethics is the study of the morality of human acts. Again, by morality, we mean the rightness or goodness and the wrongness or badness of a human action. So human acts therefore constitute the main subject matter of the study of ethics. So we have already made provided these definitions in the previous lesson. But here we will try to dwell on the nature of human acts in great detail. So a human act is an act which proceeds from the deliberate free will of man. It is also an act that proceeds from the knowing and freely willing human being. So a human act is an action that is deliberately done by a human being. That means he has a full knowledge of the action that he is doing, and then he has done such action from the exercise of his own free will. So there is a deliberation and there is exercise of free will. So a human act stems from those two things, and that is what provides the condition for its morality. Human acts are therefore moral acts. So it is the human being or the human subject or the moral agent who performs such acts coming from his own deliberate knowledge and the exercise of his free will. Therefore, the human being, man himself, is responsible for such actions. So he is accountable for it. And therefore, such actions are imputed to him. So what is imputability? Imputability is the quality of being attributed to someone or something. So human acts can therefore be attributed to the human being as its agent, the doer of such acts. Therefore, the human being is worthy of either praise or blame, or of reward or punishment, depending on the quality of the morality of the act done by the human subject. Now, in contrast to a human act, if you still remember from the previous discussion, we have acts of man. So these are man's animal acts of sensation, or the use of the senses, like the external senses, the use of sight, of touch, etc., and also of appetition, or the bodily tendencies, the bodily desires, or basically bodily animal instincts. Now, these acts are done without advertence and without the exercise of free choice. So, without knowledge and without the exercise of free choice, such acts do not constitute human acts. Therefore, they are amoral acts. They do not have the character of morality. It is to be noted, however, that acts of man can become human acts by the presence of advertence and consent of the agent. So in certain cases, an act of man rather, can become a human act. So let's cite examples to illustrate the difference. So suppose you help someone who is in need, okay, someone who is in distress. So the act of helping someone in distress is a human act. So you deliberately decide to help someone who is in distress, who is in need of help, and then after deciding that, you do it out of the exercise of your free will, out of your freedom. So that is a human act. Whereas the act of blinking your eye, or when you breathe through your nose or through your mouth, these are simply acts of man. So that's the difference between the two. And again, human acts are the main subject matter of ethics. Now, there are different classifications of human acts. First, based on complete or adequate cause. Second, based on the relation of human acts to reason. So let's head on to the first, based on complete or adequate cause. Now, there are some acts that begin and are perfected in the will itself. These are called elicited acts. And there are also others that begin in the will and are perfected by other faculties under control of the will. These are called commanded acts. So let's deal with them one by one. Acts that begin and are perfected in the will or find their adequate cause in the will alone are referred to as elicited acts. For example, you intend to study in your room. So when you decided to study and then you do it, or rather, when you make the intention to study, that very intention you have is an elicited act, whether you actually performed the action or not. So intention itself is an act of the will. It comes from the will and it is perfected by the will alone. Okay, so that is an elicited act. Acts that do not find their adequate cause in the will but are perfected by the action of mental or bodily powers that are still within the will's orders are called commanded acts. For example, when you finally decided to study, and then when you study, you use your mind to think. You use your eyes to read when you study. So, using your mind to study, to think, and using your eyes in order to read your lessons, those are commanded acts. Okay? They do not come from the will, but they are carried out by either mental faculties, in this case your mind, or your bodily faculties, in this case your eyes, which are under the control of the will. Okay, so the act of using your mind and eyes in studying, these are commanded acts. Okay, so that's the difference. Now, elicited acts and commanded acts come in different types. So here are the types of elicited acts. First, wish. This refers to the simple love of anything, and it is the first tendency of the will towards a thing, whether realizable or not. So take note, every action, every human action, human act, it always begins with the wish to act. Okay, this is based on the premise that every action has a sufficient reason. We don't do things for no reason at all. Okay, this is in the case of human acts. Okay, there is always something that we want to achieve by doing something, and this something that we want to achieve is called the end or the goal of our actions. But then the end or the goal of our action comes first in the order of intention. First, we wish to do something or we wish to achieve something. So every human act begins with the wish to act. Now, example of wish as an elicited act. For instance, you wish to become a millionaire. So your will is simply drawn towards that thing which you desire or which you wish, whether that thing is realizable or not. Or you might say, I wish to pass our ethics course, or you wish that you had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Okay, that wish comes from the will and is perfected by the will alone. Next to wish is intention. This is the purposive tendency of the will to make the wish as realizable, whether the wish is actually done or not. Okay, so in wish you do not have the purposive tendency yet to make the wish realizable. But in intention, there is now this there is now some kind of looking towards some future where you can realize such wish. Whether you perform it or carry it out or not, whether you actually do it or not. Example, I intend to become a millionaire. So there's a difference between just wishing to become a millionaire and intending to become a millionaire. So when you start to intend something, the will is already purposively tending towards it, okay, anticipating it to be something realizable. Okay, there is this wish of the will to realize something when it intends it. Okay. Next to intention, there is consent. This is the acceptance by the will of the means to carry out the intention. So consent, you give consent to the ways or the means that you must take in order to carry out your intention. So in connection to our example, to be a millionaire, then I must accept the means I must carry out to become a millionaire. Okay, that is consent. And then again, that consent is made by the will, coming from the will and perfected by the will itself. Next to consent is election. This is the selection or the choosing by the will of the precise means to be employed to carry out the intention. So this is the will is now choosing the precise means or the precise ways that should be employed in order to carry out the intention. Okay, still in connection to example, to be a millionaire, I will finish my studies. That's one way. And then I will also earn a living. I will start a business. And then I will invest in the stock market. Okay, so the will is now selecting, choosing the precise means to carry out its intention and achieve its goal. Next is use. So this is now the actual employment by the will of bodily or mental powers to carry out its intention by the means selected. Okay. So the will is now using mental faculties or bodily faculties to carry out its intention through the means that it has selected or chose. Example, I am commanding my mind and bodily faculties to do such things in order for me to achieve my intention, which is to become a millionaire. So I will direct my mind to focus on studying because I need to finish my studies in order to earn a living and soon start a business in order to achieve my goal of being a millionaire. So the will is using now my mind and some other bodily faculties in order to carry out my intention through the means that I have selected. And lastly is fruition. So this is now the enjoyment of a thing willed and done. So if you have willed and did something, if you have willed and done something, and then you achieve your goal or your purpose, then you are now enjoying, okay, the thing which you originally intended. And this is fruition. The will is enjoying, okay, the thing that it has previously willed and done. So this is the will's act of satisfaction when the intention is fulfilled. So for example, you now enjoy the fruits of your hard work. Now you are actually a millionaire. So that is fruition. So to remember easily what are the types of elicited acts, here is a mnemonic device for you. Wish, intention, consent, election, use, and fruition. What are the types of commanded acts? So there are 3 types of commanded acts: internal, external, and mixed commanded acts. Internal commanded acts, they are acts done by internal mental powers under command of the will. External commanded acts, they are acts effected by bodily powers under command of the will. Mixed commanded acts, they are acts that involve the employment of bodily and mental powers, of both. Okay, let's have some examples. So here, this photo on the left, you see man meditating. So when your will commands your mind to meditate or to think, or when your will commands your imagination to imagine something, then that is an internal commanded act. Okay, meditating is an internal commanded act. Imagining something is also an internal commanded act. Okay, so the mind and the imagination, they are 2 things. They are 2 internal faculties or internal mental powers. This photo on the right, you see here a guy eating. So when your will commands your hands and your mouth in coordination when you eat, so those are external commanded acts. Okay, your will is using your hands and your mouth when you eat. Okay, your will is commanding them. That's external commanded acts. Lastly, mixed commanded acts. When you solve a Rubik's Cube, you are using both your mind and your hands. So both mental and bodily powers or faculties are working under command of the will. So it's a mixed commanded act. Okay, so that's the first classification of human acts, that's based on a complete or adequate cause. Second is based on the relation of human acts to reason. So human acts are either in agreement or disagreement with the dictates of reason. And this relationship constitutes the morality of human acts. So when we do things, it's either these actions agrees with the dictates or the commands of reason, or they disagree with the dictates of or commands of reason. So this agreement or disagreement with the dictates of reason constitute the morality of human acts. Again, what do we mean by morality? Rightness or goodness, and wrongness or badness. So what are the classifications of human acts based on their relation to reason? We have 3. First, good. When human acts are in harmony with the dictates of reason, then these acts are good. So what does reason tell you that you must do? For instance, studying. Is studying good? Studying is good because it is in agreement, it is in harmony with the dictates of reason. Reason tells you that you must study for you to learn, for you to gain knowledge. And gaining knowledge is something good. Or helping other people. The act of helping other people is good because it is in accordance to the dictates of reason. That is something right. There are also evil or wrong acts. When human acts are in opposition with the dictates of reason, or they are in disagreement with the dictates of reason, then they are evil. For example, your act, for instance, the act of cheating. So cheating is clearly against the order of right reason. So the act of cheating is wrong because it violates the principle of right reason. There are also indifferent human acts. these are acts that stand in no positive relation to the dictates of reason. So they don't have this inherent good or evil quality because they stand in no positive relation to the dictates of reason. Example of an indifferent human act is eating. Okay? Eating is neither inherently good nor bad. Okay? But in certain circumstances, these acts may become good or evil. So there are factors also that will affect indifferent acts so that they become either good or evil. Okay, so we will go deeper into the notion of morality of human acts in one of the succeeding lessons in our course. Okay, last topic in connection to the nature of human acts. These are the constituents of human acts. So these things determine or define the very nature of human acts. So these refer to the essential elements or qualities for an act to be human or for an action to be truly considered a human act. So there are three things, elements or qualities that constitute human acts. They are knowledge, freedom, and voluntariness. So let's define each one of them. So first, knowledge. A human act proceeds from the deliberate will, meaning a human act requires deliberation. So meaning to say, every action we do, every human act, must have been deliberated first. No human act can occur without the presence of deliberation. Deliberation means advertence or knowledge in intellect of what one is about and what this means. So when you do something, you have full knowledge of what you are actually doing, what it means, and so also are the consequences of your action. In other words, deliberation means knowledge. Again, no human act is possible without knowledge. Okay, so this is the one primary requirement for an act to be human. There is presence of knowledge, that the subject, the agent of the action, knows what he is doing. Next is freedom. A human act is an act determined by the will and by nothing else. So the root cause, what determines a human act, is no other than the free will of a person. Freedom means being relieved against all kinds of ascendancy or domination. It is a release from coercion or confinement. So when you do something out of your own will, that means there are no other things that compels you to do it. Okay, it is stemming from your own will. Okay, no coercion, no one or nothing compels you to do it. So you are relieved against all kinds of domination, coercion. Freedom may be a state of being cleared from anything that is displeasing, disagreeable, or burdensome. So sometimes the things that we do are encumbered by these things that we may find displeasing, disagreeable, and burdensome. Therefore, a person is free insofar as they determine their own choice or decision without any form of impediments or obstacles. Okay, so a human act is free precisely because there are no impediments, hindrances that come across the human agent when performing such acts. Furthermore, a person is free insofar as, first, he is unconfined to any sort of adhesion, so he is not attached to anything. Second, the person is independent. And then the person is allowed to perform any type of activity without unjust condition. So there are no unfair conditions that impedes the person to do certain things. And lastly, the person upholds any rights and privileges that all people enjoy. So a person can only be free if he holds certain rights and privileges that he shares with all people, with all humans. There is freedom when a person is offered alternatives for decision. So the fact that we are able to make choices, that presupposes that we are offered alternatives, options. Okay, we are offered different courses of action. So the fact that that is the case means that we have freedom, in other words. Alright, so that is freedom. So the last constituent of human act is voluntariness. Okay. For a human act to be voluntary, or for it to have voluntariness, it simply means that it must be a will act. Okay, what is a will act? Meaning to say that both knowledge and freedom are present in the agent. Okay, in other words, the agent simply wills to do such a thing. Therefore, it becomes a will act. That is voluntariness. So the person has the certain kind of willingness to do it. He wills to do it. That is voluntariness. So again, these three constitute the nature of human acts: knowledge, freedom, and voluntariness. So in the succeeding lessons, we will focus on the nature of human acts, specifically on the voluntariness of human acts.